Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be talking all about Chiron through the houses. Now, if you have not yet watched the Chiron through the signs video, I highly recommend watching that video and then coming back over here, because the thing about Chiron through the signs is Chiron through the signs will show you the how, but Chiron through the houses is going to show you the where. So we want to think about watching both videos in combination. Now, before we do dive in, please make sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let me know, where is Chiron in your chart. So for me, Chiron is in Leo in the 11th house when using the Placidus system, but it is in the 12th house when using whole sign. Yes, let us know, where is Chiron in your chart as well. I also feel the need to mention that I will place a link to a series that I made, I think it was 2019, but that series was all about Chiron through the houses. So if you want more detailed, thorough explanations of Chiron through the houses, check out that series. Yes. Rightio. Yes, Chiron through the houses. Now, if you're interested in booking a reading with me, then you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my astrology products. And I want to take a moment to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. And one more thing here, there is an episode over at my podcast all about Chiron. So if you want more information about the function of Chiron within your chart, then listen to that episode. Right, so this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be breaking things down into a few. So we're going to be breaking down Chiron based on stages. Firstly, I want to say here that in the Chiron through the signs video, I talked about Chiron in more detail. Okay, if you want more information about Chiron, check out the intro part to that video. But this is just a quick overview about the stages. Now, the reason for these stages is because some astrologers do look to Virgo and Sagittarius as being these rulers. So Chiron ruling these signs. You can see the parallels, you really can, between Chiron and Virgo and Sagittarius. So what I decided to do was I broke things down in this order. So the first stage is all about your younger self. The younger self is more the first 25 years or so of your life. And this stage looks at the wound itself. So how have we been wounded or damaged due to feelings of inadequacy or rejection? Naturally, this could be a physical wound, it could be a bite, a burn, a mark, what have you, okay? And then coming into the second stage, the Virgo stage. So this would be more sort of 25 and beyond there. I would say between about 25 coming into our 50s. The Virgo stage is coming to terms with the wound. Okay, there's a lot of acceptance involved, there's healing involved. We dive into the underworld, meaning we dive into our psyche, we dive into our unconscious. This is also why it's important to watch Chiron through the signs, because in that video, I talk more about the underworld section. And then, of course, we also think about things like compassion, forgiveness, integration, right? Integration is a big part of Chiron. So yes, again, just to repeat this, there's more information over on that Chiron through the signs video. But then you see we come to the third stage with Sagittarius, and this is when we come into our 50s, right? We become, well, our 50s and beyond, which aligns with our Chiron return actually. So this is our elder, time period. So we become more wise, we become mentors, guides, we can teach others. We can really teach others based on our own wounds and the healing that we have already performed within ourselves. So that's just a quick overview about the stages, but let's now get into the houses. Okay, yes, Chiron through the houses. So we have here firstly Chiron in the first house. So what we notice when it comes to you individuals is a potential wound physically, right? Physically. So this could look like a particular wound that shows up, especially around the head, your face there. This could be a scar, a burn, a birthmark. And the other thing about this is if Chiron is quite close to the ascendant, okay, so if it's making a significant sort of conjunction to the ascendant, this can be, it can potentially represent a challenging birth, okay? There could have been a health scare, right? Whenever you were born, maybe there was some sort of emergency, there was a crisis. Yes, so I just want to say that. And I further want to mention here that if it is that there's some type of scar on your face, maybe you were teased, maybe you were bullied for such a mark. And another possibility is just feeling really isolated, just alienated in general, right? Chiron, when we think about the mythology, Chiron felt like an outcast, okay, because Chiron was different to the other centaurs. So there is a part of this, perhaps, if you've got Chiron in the first house, where it just feels like, you're not seen, or you're not lovable, or people don't like you very much. But it's not even just a feeling. This could have been a literal thing where other people made you think that, right? Made you feel that way about yourself. We could see, even if you have Chiron in the first house, being very shy, very withdrawn as well. Naturally, with that being said, we kind of want to think about the sign. So, as I was saying, the sign is going to show the house. So, I mean, if Chiron is in Cancer, yes, this could very well indicate being very shy, very withdrawn, highly sensitive, like hypersensitive to other people's views, their opinions, especially whenever you were younger. But then, I mean, it could be Chiron and Leo. There could be a part of this where, or even Aries as well, but there could be a part of this where you really push forward then to gain some type of attention, right? So there could be some kind of, you could overcompensate when it comes to Chiron. So there could be this thing of overcompensating by gaining as much attention as possible if you've got Chiron and Leo there in the first house. But still, with Chiron in the first, it can seem as if you are not really accepted by other people. And, when we even think about the first house can rule our name, literally our name. So name calling could have been a big issue for you, right? And then I guess that ties in with bullying as well. So, whatever the case may be for you here with Chiron in the first house, there is a lot of healing that you embark on. I think you really come to terms with your own identity. That could be another thing, right? Having and experiencing all of these sort of identity crises throughout your life, and just kind of struggling with this concept of, who am I and why am I here, and just finding it hard to feel safe and secure within your own body. There could be some type of body issues there. I mean, possibly body dysmorphia there. Difficulties when it comes to self-discovery, just when it comes to yourself in general. So there is that. Yes, a lot of this is to do with your own identity. And hey, with Chiron in the first house, there could even be issues when it comes to goals, right? Goal setting, what you want, what are your aspirations, what do you want to do with your life? Just all of these questions. And maybe a big part of it as well is that you don't feel good enough. So there could be a real difficulty here. But as I say, with these stages, I think that, coming up to your 50s and beyond, you really come to learn that actually you do have a purpose, you do have a meaning, and you more so come to terms with who you are, right? And even if people have their opinions and their views about you, it's like, I'm still gonna validate myself. And you can even be some type of guide or mentor toward other people who need to hear that message too. Okay, let's now move on to Chiron in the second house. So with Chiron in the second house here, the wound, it of course can pertain to, well, it can show up as some body issue, right? And yes, okay, this could be a similar scenario to that of having Chiron in the first house, but with with this, it's more about not feeling very secure within your body, and your self-worth comes into this as well. This one, I show a lot of empathy and sympathy, especially if it is, for instance, that in the past someone has completely disrespected your body. They have disrespected your body and um, your own sort of body autonomy in this way. That's very that's horrible if that has happened to you. And also, there could be real issues when it comes to finances, when it comes to spending. There could be real fears of money. People, hey, this could literally be people stealing from you, people just taking and taking and taking from you, right? And you having to really take control of your own resources and your own physical security in this regard, because it seems as if with Chiron here, there there is a potential wound to do with others lying, manipulating, stealing, just taking from you. The disrespect really that comes from that. But this could go back further, of course, right? This could go back to your childhood and just feeling like you didn't have enough, being raised in an environment where it was just scarcity all the time, right? Thinking about shelter and food and your only own livelihood, these things were possibly threatened. Again, this is where the sign is going to come into the equation, right? Because the sign being the high, I mean, Chiron could be in Scorpio in the second house, and really, Chiron and Scorpio in the second house, when we think about what I just explained, things could be very, very intense. All right, very intense there. The scarcity, the extremes, the highs and the lows, the challenges when it came to your family providing and, providing for you, supporting you. But then it's also all of the potential traumatic experiences that you witnessed and that you went through there. Again, when we bring it back to the body there. Yeah, Chiron can be a really, really emotionally challenging body to work with. Now, if we consider even Chiron being in Gemini in the second house, there could be issues here when it came to your voice, right? Speaking up for yourself, speaking up for your self-worth, and then even thinking about how your self-esteem was really threatened verbally. Okay, through people's words, their lies, people being really quite vicious there. So again, we want to think about the sign because the sign is going to show the how. Now, what I also want to mention is with Chiron in the second house, there could be some type of scar or rejection or wound to do with your talents or your skills. This can also indicate then feelings of inadequacy, not feeling good enough, right? So let's think about the sign again. I mean, Chiron, let's say Chiron actually is in Gemini, right? And maybe you really loved to write music as a child, but then you were told by others that, no, why are you doing that? That's a waste of time, right? Just being put down, or just feeling like what you were doing in terms of a skill or a talent just was useless. So as you grow, right? So we think about the Virgo stage coming into your 30s, and we think about the Sagittarius stage coming into your 50s and beyond. There is so much healing that is done here. There's so much wisdom that can be, brought forward, right? It's this whole thing of turning your wounds into wisdom when it comes to Chiron. And maybe a part of that is supporting other people with their own self-worth, or supporting other people when it comes to their own skills and talents and gifts and so on too. Okay, so let's now think about Chiron in the third house. Okay, so with Chiron in the third house, well, first and foremost, what I'm going to say about this is the way that you learn, the way you communicate, the way you process information may just be different to how other people do it, right? But there can be this sort of feeling alienated or feeling like an outcast because of your differentness. And there could be real challenges connecting then with other people because of this. Do you know, I'm going to say this, right? I was watching a short film last night, and I recommend watching this short film. I was almost brought to tears, but it was called The Silent Child. You can maybe look that up on YouTube. But the whole thing about this short film is it was based on a girl who was deaf. And she was just a little child. I'd say maybe she was about 5 or 6 years old. And she was not getting the support that she needed by her family to, to help her with her own communication. So they brought in help. They brought in assistance. I'll not give too much away, but it was really sad. It was just really, really heartbreaking to see just how lonely she must have felt, sitting at the kitchen table, and everybody else is chatting and speaking, and she obviously can't hear anything. But then that's where it's essential for her to get that support. So for you, of course, with Chiron in the third, maybe it doesn't have to be, something like that, but I'm just giving you an example of how your communication can be sort of limited in some way, shape, or form, or very challenging. So yes, there could be some type of a rejection or a possible wound there. There could also be something to be said about your nervous system. So how you regulate your nervous system, or how it operates, how it functions, is challenged as well. And even thinking about your own learning, right? Your ability to learn, education, how those matters were overlooked or rejected, or you felt, really unsure of yourself growing up. Possibly too, I'll even say this, with Chiron in the third house, we could notice a sibling, right? So a sibling, a cousin, a relative who is actually wounded in some way, or in pain, or this could even be a loss, for instance, the loss of a sibling. But as I say this, I am really trying to come across as empathetic and as sensitive. I really am. So these are just a few different examples with Chiron in the third. Naturally, we want to think about the sign, because the sign is going to show the how. So, Chiron, for instance, could be in Aquarius in the third house. So maybe when I talk about a particular relative or a sibling, maybe you were really good friends, or it's that you still are really good friends with them, but there is some kind of disconnect, or it's that you've worked through a lot of those challenges together, right? A lot of those difficulties you've worked through. You've worked on that relationship, basically. Let's say Chiron is in Virgo, right? So Chiron could be in Virgo in the third house. Maybe this is about health, right? Perhaps the rejection or feelings of inadequacy linked to communication are also very much tied in with your health, or with the health of a sibling. So again, these are just examples. But what I will say is that with Chiron in the third house here, as you do grow and mature, right, thinking about the Virgo stage, the Sagittarius stage, you come to, I would even say, use your way of learning or your way of communicating kind of as possibly like a superpower, just as something that is notable and can be helpful, right? Maybe this could be, for instance, I mean, I think about the short film that I watched about the silent child and the support that was brought in, the lady who helped her. So you know, acting as someone like that, for instance, okay, kind of saying that, you know, that the way that somebody else learns or the way that somebody else processes information, it doesn't mean that it's bad or it's negative. It's like there's a place for that, right? There's a place for that, and there can be support there that can be provided. Okay, let's now think about Chiron in the fourth house. So with Chiron in the fourth house, well, this one, it can be a very, very difficult one because it involves family, it involves your upbringing. This could literally be you being separated from your parents growing up. This could be you feeling abandoned by your parents or a particular parental figure. This could be rejection and feelings of inadequacy when it came to your family members, just feeling very isolated from your family members. There could also be a potentiality of you finding it difficult to let out your emotions and your feelings, and then other people becoming possibly quite impatient with you. But then that creates even more sadness and pain within yourself because it's like nobody understands me, you know? Yeah, there can be real feelings of just feeling misunderstood basically when it comes to family and opening up. And it may really take you some time to open up to others. You could be a very, very private person, and maybe a big part of the reason for why you're so private is because you have been hurt time and time again, possibly by the ones who were supposed to keep you safe, who were supposed to protect you. So I hope you can see how that is very difficult. But also, there could be something here about the living situation in general. So the ways in which your family functioned, it was not very functional, right? This could be you growing up in a really dysfunctional family, actually, or you growing up and feeling so isolated from your family, even though you were together, and then you looking at other families and thinking, "Oh my goodness, I wish my family was normal," right? There could be real challenges there for you. And when we think about Aquarius again, right, the signs are going to show the high. I said Aquarius as an example for the third house, but let's say Aquarius for the fourth house. I mean, yeah, there could be something to be said about you feeling very alienated, just like nobody can really relate to you. Not one family member can relate to you, and that's a very, very lonely place to be in. Yeah. Now, I also want to mention when we think about signs again, let's say Chiron is in Taurus in the fourth house. This then could be more about how stable and how secure you feel amongst your family members. There's just no consistency. It just doesn't feel the most steady, but yet you're longing for that steadiness. Now, this is where I want to mention again about Virgo Sagittarius stages. So coming into your 30s, your 50s and beyond, etc., this is where we notice a lot of the healing. This is where we notice you getting yourself to a place of I can relax here. I'm safe here. I am settled here. I feel secure. Regulating your emotions is a big thing here too. And just, I would say overall, nurturing yourself, really coming to a place of caring for yourself, because there does seem to be some type of wound to do with feeling safe and being nurtured by others, and even just again the challenges when it came to your emotional self, right? Your emotional world. All right, so let's now think about Chiron in the fifth house. So with Chiron in the fifth house here, well, there does seem to be some type of wound when it comes to play and fun, being spontaneous, joining in on the games. Chiron in the fifth house natives, I mean, perhaps you were pushed out of the play group, so to speak, or it felt like how you contributed to the play group, it was seen as shameful or wrong or bad. Maybe even difficulties when it came to being creative, or being told that you weren't very creative as a child, or being teased, being laughed at. Maybe your interests, your passions, your hobbies, and things like that were shunned and you were rejected then, right? We see this more so within your younger years. So, thinking about you being a child, there could have been all sorts of implications there when it came to playing with other children. And another possibility is when we think about children within your life, you noticing how children were mistreated. So you could, come into your teenage years, into your 20s, maybe your siblings, they have children of their own, and you can see possible dysfunction, or you feel really, really bad for those children, or just feeling really bad for children in general, and how certain children are treated in this world, right? There's a lot of possible, like, empathy, right? A lot of empathy and compassion for the young. Okay, another possibility though is to do with your inner child, feeling like your inner child is wounded and coming to terms with your inner child wounds and the healing that's involved on that journey as well. Now, another possibility is when we think about how the fifth house, and I really, really want to be very sensitive as I go to say this. The fifth house can also look at the children that we go on to have ourselves. So there could be issues with having a child here. There could be some serious health implications there. And then another possibility is with romantic relationships ruling the fifth house, there could be some type of wound or scar or a rejection to do with romantic relationships and dating. I mean, this could be a situation where you feel like you're not good enough, or you're not worthy, right? You're not worthy of love, and that's heavy. Like, I'm just going to say that that's a very heavy topic to bring up there. Now, as for the signs, so the signs are going to show the how. So let's say Chiron is actually in Libra in the fifth house. Well, I mean, this is really going to indicate the relationship stuff. This really going to highlight the appreciation, the give and take, feeling loved. Maybe there can be all sorts of doubts that you have in your mind about committed relationships and finding the one, this type of stuff. And by the way, when I say finding the one, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with that statement. It's just that you hear that quite a bit when it comes to relationships. Now, another possibility though is, let's think about Chiron being in Pisces in the fifth house. Well, there could be all sorts of difficulties tied to your imagination, right? Just feeling blocked or feeling limited when it comes to your imagination. Maybe being treated like you're very weird, or like, that's ridiculous. Why would you say that, or why would you think of that? And that can be heartbreaking for any child to experience that, right? So for a child to be their imaginative selves and then for that to be destroyed or stamped on, for that to be put down, that's a it's a horrible thing to think about. Okay. As for the healing process, though, with Chiron in the fifth house, coming into your 30s and your 50s, I do see this as you really beginning to recognize your creativity, right? To come to terms with your creativity, to even come to terms with self-love, right? Loving yourself, appreciating yourself, accepting yourself, and joining in on the fun, right? Doing something spontaneous, being playful. A lot of this starts to unfold. Naturally, I just want to say here, when it comes to working with Chiron, this is a process. It's not a black and white thing. I'm not here to give you quick fixes. I'm simply here to just highlight, okay, these are some potential themes that you may be working with when it comes to Chiron. But of course, it's always important to have an astrologer read your unique chart and to work together in this way. But yes, coming in your 50s as well, you can then perhaps act as some type of mentor or guide for others, possibly for younger people. All right, moving on to Chiron in the sixth house then. So, with Chiron being in the sixth house, there's some kind of wounds then to do with your health, to do with your body. I mean, this could be a real serious situation for you, a health scare. This could be like a physical implication that does limit you from being able to work as well. Maybe this is about you really coming to terms with what you can physically do. Because I think, well, okay, when we think about the sort of corporate world, when we think about the 9 to 5, success and status and all the rest of it within society, the thought of doing things differently based on our own health, that can be hard for us to wrap our heads around, I think. And there can be all sorts of grief that can be involved with that too. Or it can be this whole thing of, oh, I don't feel normal. I don't feel like I can function within society with everybody else. And of course, when I say this, I am trying to be as sensitive as I possibly can here. But with Chiron in the sixth house, I think that in a way, this is about you coming to terms with your your own body's limitations and not punishing yourself for it, right? Not criticizing yourself. It's more about, okay, I accept that maybe I have this illness or maybe I have this condition and I have to take this medication. Whatever it may be for you. I think the Chiron part of it really is about empathy and compassion for yourself, right? And trying as well not to compare yourself to other people's sort of productivity levels or whatever they're doing. This is about you, right? It's really about you. Um, See, I'll even say here with Chiron in the sixth house, you may actually push yourself. You may overdo it. You may kind of push yourself to such a point that you burn yourself out even more. And this is where, again, I think this is why it's important to recognize that you're on your own individual path. So, what I'll also say here with Chiron in the sixth house, there could be some type of rejection or feelings of inadequacy to do with coworkers, right? How you may have been treated by coworkers, for instance, and how you relate to them, or maybe there are some issues to do with work itself and the services you provide or the time that you do, maybe being overlooked possibly, or being treated unfairly, being treated poorly, right? Now, another possibility though is there could be some issues to do with, and again, I don't want to be very sensitive here as I say this, and I'm not going to go into too much depth either. It's kind of why I'm keeping things a bit more concise too, because Chiron can be heavy, it can be, but there could be issues when it comes to eating, right? Eating, diet, nutrition, this type of stuff. So I'm just going to say that. So the sign is going to show the how. So especially if Chiron is in Virgo, could heighten what I just said there. It could really be about these matters. Even if Chiron is in Taurus, there could be something about food and nutrition being highlighted there. Chiron in Sagittarius, I mean, that could really be, it could show up as you overworking. It could show up as you traveling to all these places, doing all these things and burning yourself out. So yes, the sign is going to show the how. And the thing about this too is coming into your 30s and your 50s, this is then about the healing that occurs, right? This is about the compassion and the empathy that you can show yourself and the acceptance of, I accept that I am limited in this way. Or this could be about you sharing a message with other people, to the young, right? You can teach the younger generation, how to look after their bodies. What I think about here, okay, this is just coming to my mind, and I know that's perhaps not really the same thing, but it's just an example. I think about Simone Biles, okay, the Olympic athlete. She, of course, is a gymnast. And in 2020, she noticed that she wasn't doing very well. She wasn't doing very well. So what did she do? She said, "Hey, you know what? I can't do this. I know myself. I know my body. I am going to take some time off and I'm going to rest." That's what she did. And she comes back to the Olympics 4 years later and she absolutely has killed it. Amazing. It just shows that it's so, so vital for us to look after our bodies. So that's maybe something to consider, right? That's a potential sort of message you can pass on to other people as a way to show your wisdom. Okay, so let's now move on to Chiron in the seventh house, individuals. Right, so with having Chiron in the seventh house, the wound can show up via other people. So this could be a situation where your partner, a business associate, or a close friend of yours, they have been wounded or hurt in some way. Or there could be even potential rejections coming from you or the other. So you or others feeling rejected, literally being rejected. I mean, this could even be a whole scenario where you feel like you're not worthy of a relationship, of a committed, long-lasting relationship, Chiron in the seventh house, folks. Or there could be some issues with commitment. So there could be issues when it comes to committing yourself, or it could be that you attract certain people into your life who they struggle with commitment themselves. Possibly codependency could come into this, people pleasing could come into this as well. Naturally, what we want to think about is being mindful of fixing the other, because it could be where you step into this fixer role within your relationships and you think you can fix the other person. But because the seventh house is also tied to projection, there could be projecting your own wounds or even your own fears of commitment onto the relationship itself. Of course, we want to think about this the other way, where you attract partners who are like this with you too. Now, another possibility I want to say too is, well, on a very practical level, with Chiron in the seventh house, perhaps you've went through a rather ugly divorce or separation, or it could be more of a breakup, a long-term committed relationship. It comes to an end, but that ending is not so pleasing. Let's just say that. It's actually really, really challenging. There could even be issues here when it comes to clients or customers, right? Possible rejections there, or being let down, being massively let down by someone who you thought was your friend or who you trusted. Being let down by people who you do business with as well, right? So there's something, possible wounds and rejections and feelings of inadequacy when it comes to business. So being mindful about the types of people that you do business with. Oh, so yes, these are potential outcomes or possibilities, let's just say, with having Chiron in the seventh house. Now, with that being said, we want to think about the sign. So the sign is going to show us the how. So let's say Chiron is in Cancer in the seventh house. Well, these matters I talk about to do with partnerships and relationships and the potentials of rejections and difficulties with committing and everything. Well, these matters may be very emotionally draining. And there could also be the whole thing of stepping into a caregiving role. Stepping into a caregiving role because you feel like you can fix or help or care for the other person. And maybe such experiences are linked to the past, thinking about your own family dynamics there. This is also where we notice then the shadow and projections and so on with the seventh house. But then another possibility, hey, let's say Chiron is in Capricorn in the seventh house. You could possibly still step into that fixer role, but you do so in a more authoritative way or in a practical way, in a serious way, right? Where you think, okay, if I can just help this other person get X, Y, and Z in order and structured within their lives, then this can really help them, etc., etc. So yes, we want to just be careful here, mindful of rather, just becoming super involved, becoming too involved, enmeshed, the codependency stuff. Now, with that being said, I want to say this about Chiron in the seventh house. When we think about the Virgo stage, the Sagittarius stage, so coming into your 30s, your 50s, and beyond, well, it could actually be via relationships where there is a lot of healing and you come to terms with greater acceptance. You come to terms with potential wounds. So, for instance, maybe, you experience certain relationships where it is very, very difficult for you, but then you may get into your relationship later on in your life with someone, and that relationship is incredibly healing, but it's not in that enmeshed way. It's more organic, it's much more natural. And your relationships could very well get to a point where the best of you is brought out. And you even come to terms with certain parts of yourself that felt fragmented or hurt. So, yes, relationships can also grow to become really very healthy. I guess it does depend on the inner work that you do and that others do at the same time. And plus, you can come to terms with, well, how you can help other people, right? But again, we want to be mindful of you playing that role of, okay, I will sort the other person out. It's more about just sharing your own sort of wisdom and your knowledge with others as a way to support. I mean, this could be being a mentor or a teacher in some way, shape, or form uh, on a more one-on-one level. Okay, so let's now think about Chiron in the eighth house. So anything eighth house, things are going to be very intense and profound. And there are much more psychological themes at play. So with Chiron in the eighth house, right off the bat, there could be a situation where you experience loss, okay? Maybe you experience loss from a very, very young age. I mean, it could have been a parent that passed, okay? Or it could have been a child, maybe even a younger sibling of yours. But whatever the case may be, there seems to be something about loss and grief, perhaps from a young age. Another possibility here, though, is, well, when we think about intimacy and trust and vulnerability, when it comes to the eighth house, there could be real psychological challenges here. So for instance, this could be a matter of finding it really, really hard to trust other people. Maybe because you have been hurt in the past, but the thing about this is about you doing your own inner work, possibly reaching out to a therapist or a psychologist, right, for that assistance. And so, yes, a lot of inner exploration. I feel, is to be performed there. And another possibility with Chiron in the eighth is it could very well feel like things like debts and loans, other people's finances, like those things are just so debilitating, or there are all sorts of issues when it comes to these financial matters for you. Maybe growing up, there was a lot of scarcity or a lot of fear surrounding debt and loans and other people's money. Maybe you yourself, you really um, find it difficult to wrap your head around these areas at times. Another possibility I'm going to say here with Chiron in the eighth is, so you may have seen or observed other people being controlling or manipulative or unreasonable with their own finances, or even using their own materials, their own finances as a way for their own personal gain. And such matters may make you really very mindful about your own resources and finances, or even about the power of the power plays that can happen when it comes to such areas. Yeah, I mean, this could be a whole situation where there was a loss or a death, and then all sorts of really terrible information came to light after the loss of a certain individual. And then because of those experiences, it just makes you even more skeptical, right? Or suspicious. Yeah, so this stuff can be really quite heavy, especially if it is that there was a lot of secrecy or lies and deceit, deception, all these types of things. Now, another possibility here could be terror and fear when it comes to the paranormal, right? When it comes to spirits, ghosts, things like this. You could really be fearful of being hurt or being haunted or feeling certain entities. There could be this thing of feeling entities on you or attached to you. Now, with that being said, it really does depend on your own sort of beliefs here, too. I just want to be mindful there. But even just to think of this on an emotional level, then fear could be a big driving factor within your life, and you might not recognize that or notice that. Yeah, irrational fears that can just take over. And then there could be all sorts of issues with being vulnerable or letting people close. There could be all sorts of issues when it comes to your own future as well. And maybe there's just a lot to untangle, right? A lot of psychological, emotional, spiritual stuff to make sense of. It can be a lot here with Chiron on the eighth house. Now, we also want to think about the sign, right? So the sign that Chiron is in. So the sign is going to show us the how. So let's say Chiron is in Aries in the eighth house. So there could be something here about you taking leadership, right? Being in a leadership position where you go, okay, I am going to look at my own psyche. I'm going to explore my psychology. But then the thing is that the loss stuff and the grief stuff could also it could evolve. I'm going to spell it out here just with demonetization, but anger, VIOLENCE. Okay. Real traumas there, traumatic experiences coming up with Chiron and Aries. Possibly a wound to the head, or there could be something quite psychological about your energy levels or even your SCX reality there. Chiron in the eighth house in general could show up as fears when it comes to your SCX reality, or really having to address any wounds or traumas linked to your asexuality, right? So I want to be very sensitive as I say that. Now, another possibility then with the sign, let's think if Chiron is in, let's go with Capricorn again. If Chiron is in Capricorn in the 8th house, yes, there could be some blockages and limitations here when it comes to accessing certain emotions. There could be repressed emotions there that you may come to explore or you may never come to explore, right? There could just be certain memories or things to do with the past that you're like, nope, never looking at that again. That is locked away for the rest of my life. Hey, that is a possibility. But here's the thing. As you come into your 30s and then your 50s and beyond, with Chiron in the 8th house, I think you really do come to show empathy toward others. You come to truly try to understand where other people are coming from emotionally. You can become really great healers, guides. You may become very spiritual, very much in tune with your spirituality. And you may also be able to support other people through their own transformations and their own dark times in life. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you think about it, you've possibly seen what it's like, right? You've felt it, you've experienced what it's like to lose loved ones, to go through such just tragedy in your life. And then you can come from this place of, do you know what, I can somewhat relate here, or I can try to help other people through their own dark times. Naturally, of course, just be mindful of, it becoming a matter of trying to control or to manipulate the situation. It's still about giving other people the space to work through their own shadow, so to speak. Still, yes, you can become really quite spiritual and deep, deep as individuals, especially coming into your older years, and you can provide some type of support and guidance to other people. Okay, so Chiron in the 9th house now. So right off the bat with Chiron in the 9th house, there could be some challenges here when it comes to your beliefs, your meaning, really questioning your meaning. And the thing about this is it could show up as you experiencing all of this existential crises, the existential crises, and just struggling to really make sense of, well, God and the world and why you're here and what is your meaning. And, it could be that you've been rejected or shunned, left out by religious figures, or it's that you were cast out of a particular church or out of a particular religious situation. Yeah. Um, Maybe you have all sorts of wounds tied to the relationship that you have with religion and religious figures, preachers, prophets, pastors, etc., etc. Yeah, of course, it depends on your own religion there, but yes, there could be a real wound here, or it could be a case of you at times feeling like life is meaningless or pointless. You could struggle, to feel even optimistic or hopeful about the future at times. You could look at the future as very bleak and really you can really struggle then with seeing the positives, right? Looking to the good. And maybe there is a real valid reason for why you feel this way or have felt this way in the past. Another possibility, though, is feeling cast out by professors or by teachers. So there could have been a traumatic situation at university that you experienced, for instance. It could also even be that you really struggle to think about, okay, what I want to do with my life, right? Like, what is the path I want to take? Which subject would I like to study and qualify in? All of these questions. And maybe you even experienced a rather difficult time, a hard time by or from your peers or from your parents about these kinds of questions. So, yeah, for you, there can be just this challenge when it comes to your direction in life and what you want out of life and your aspirations and everything. But hey, another possibility is some kind of wound or rejection to do with legal matters, really being hurt by somebody else. And then it opens up a whole legal situation, a lawsuit. And I even just want to say here, with Chiron in the seventh house, you may relate to this. There can be a bit of this as well with the law and the legal system, with either Chiron in the seventh or Chiron in the ninth. But yes, legal proceedings can show up within the ninth. And so Chiron there, it can suggest some type of wound. This could even, of course, relate to that of you moving, right? Wanting to move abroad or wanting to get a particular visa or having certain documents signed. There's just a rejection there. Okay, yes. Now, seeing as I mentioned, long distance travel, possibility here is that you have experienced something really very traumatic, or there has been a wound or a scar tied to long distance travel. I mean, for example, being attacked is that's possibly quite a big one there, and I do want to show sensitivity, but it's just an example. Okay, we want to think about the sign. So the sign is going to show the how. So let's say Chiron is in, let's say it's in Leo in the ninth house. So this stuff to do with your higher education and feeling like, oh, I'm not sure what I want to do with my life. What do I want to study? This stuff could be really quite difficult when it comes to your confidence. There could be a real wound or a pain or an ache to do with confidence. Feeling like you're being set back a bit, or like you're not very sure of yourself, that can put you into a position where you feel quite insecure. But then another possibility could be Chiron in Virgo. Let's go with Virgo in the ninth house. Maybe such uncertainties to do with your direction. It feels all very personal in terms of your intellect and your capabilities and your dedication. Even your beliefs could be not quite true there. There could be a false narrative when it comes to your beliefs, thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes, being very, very critical of yourself, as an example. So, as you come into your 30s and your 50s and beyond and so on, there is a great deal of acceptance. Even just coming to terms with, yes, okay, what do you believe in? And that it's really about your own relationship that you have there with God or with a higher power, for instance. Maybe as well, a part of this is figuring out what you want to do, and just it's more about your own path, basically, and not really focusing or paying attention to what other people are doing in this way, and just sticking to what is true for you. But yeah, I think there's a lot of growth, a lot of spiritual growth, intellectual growth when it comes to your beliefs, and as well being able to teach others or mentor others about the things that run true for them as well, right? There's the sharing quality, passing on information, passing on knowledge to the younger generations about their own aspirations, about the things that they believe in and their own meaning, etc. Okay, so let's think about Chiron in the 10th house now. Well, with Chiron in the 10th house here, there could be a real wound to do with success. What is success? And at times, really battling with success. And I want to be really sensitive as I say this, because the thing about the 4th and the 10th houses is that these houses can show up as the kinds of relationship that we had with our parental figures. So in the case of Chiron in the 10th, maybe there's a part of you folks where all you wanted was for your father to recognize you or to just be there. A possibility here is that your father wasn't really present throughout your childhood. Another possibility is that even if your father was present throughout your childhood physically, he wasn't really present in the way that you needed him to be, in a way where you felt like, yes, my father wants me to succeed, and my father really recognizes my successes. So, yes, and there could even be here feelings of inadequacy when it comes to your accomplishments and your achievements. So, no matter how hard you work, no matter how dedicated you are, no matter how much you put your best foot forward, it's just never enough. And maybe a part of it is because you're looking outside of yourself for other people to validate that and to notice you. Naturally, with that, there is a lot to be said about you coming to terms with you recognizing yourself. And that's a journey. That's a whole journey. That's a whole process. Naturally, this is not about me saying that this is the quick fix or this is what you need to do, so to speak. This is a process. It's very much a lifelong thing. Still, another possibility here with Chiron in the 10th house is you may actually find that the relationships that you have with people in positions of authority, people in positions of power, you may find those relationships to be quite challenging, or like you need to push back against them. Maybe you find yourself constantly surrounded by incompetent members of authority. They don't know what they're doing, and you kind of think to yourself, my goodness, I could do this job, right? But here's the thing. It's this whole thing of, no matter, this is what I was trying to say earlier, no matter how much you grow up or learn or work hard or show discipline, there's still this part of you that feels like you must be doing more or you must keep pushing. And the other thing about it too is you've possibly been in roles and positions where you've been mistreated, like really, really mistreated by people in a position of authority. So I think with Chiron in the 10th, it's almost like you find yourself getting knocked down so many times, knocked back so many times. When it comes to your professional lives, when it comes to your purpose, your long-term goals. Of course, 10th house, Saturnian energy, Capricorn energy is all about those delays and stuff like that. But I think still it's so hurtful. It's so hurtful. And you think, why? Really? Why? This sucks. Why is this happening? Still, when we think about the sign, so the sign is going to show the how. Right. Let's say Chiron, well, Chiron actually is in Capricorn in the 10th house. It's very much going to heighten what I've just said. But Chiron could very well be in Gemini in the 10th house. So there could be all sorts of setbacks and delays when it comes to communication or when it comes to feeling like, your intellect or your message is being recognized by managers or bosses. And again, with a wound or the feelings of inadequacy, these things could show up when it comes to your voice or when it comes to writing, when it comes to sharing a message, when it comes to your education. But then let's say that Chiron is in, let's go with Libra. I mean, this could be a whole thing where it's difficult to negotiate, it's difficult to collaborate with others within your profession. It just sort of feels like things are not very balanced or very fair. And so maybe there are setbacks present there. Or it's that it's challenging for you to feel like you're accepted within partnerships, and then how those things show up on a professional level. So yes, do remember that the sign is going to show the how, but still coming into your 30s and then your 50s and beyond with Chiron in the 10th house, I do think that you come to really succeed, actually. To succeed in your own way. You could very well redefine what success actually means. And well, what's important is what is successful for you, and even teaching other people, right? Passing on whatever you discover, whatever you figure out, passing on that information to others, being some type of mentor or a guide, a guide who really shows up in a disciplined and dedicated way for the younger generations. And you can teach them a lot about, their own position or status or ambition and their own achievements and accomplishments. You can show up as a very, very supportive figure there. Okay, let's now turn our focus to Chiron in the 11th house. So just to say here that when using the Placidus system, Chiron is in the 11th house in my chart. So first things first, when it comes to the wound, there's some type of wound or rejection to do with, well, the collective. When it comes to clubs, groups, friendships, teams, organizations, feeling very much disconnected, feeling alienated, isolated, and quite possibly being shunned and pushed out, right? Shunned, rejected by others. Finding it really, really difficult to join in. There is a challenge here when it comes to community, when it comes to togetherness. And maybe in the past, you have literally been rejected by your friends, right? You've been hurt terribly by friends, by people who you thought, that you could trust. And another possibility, even, is really struggling with your own collective identity, where you see yourself within the collective, where you see yourself with respect to your country, thinking about your nationality. All these types of questions come up. Your race, basically just those collective identity themes. There could be real struggles there, and again, there could be real rejections and wounds, right? Real wounds here present. Plus, there could be wounds here when it comes to your own non-conforming views, non-conforming ideas. Maybe as you have went to state, okay, this is my opinion about a collective situation, you have been rejected or shunned in some way, shape, or form. But still, there's just this challenge when it comes to groups, when it comes to joining in, really just joining in with others. I mean, I know for myself with Chiron and Leo in the 11th house, I can very much relate to this. I have found it actually very debilitating in the past. I still do. Expressing myself within a group. I tend to be a lot better when it comes to one-to-one. Yeah, so when it's me and just one other person, I tend to do better. But yes, self-expression there with the Leo influence, it's very, very difficult for me. But hey, the past 4 years or so, I have been in group psychotherapy. So I would say that I am improving slowly and steadily. But I can still recognize those challenges within myself. A lot of it as well, I think, has to do with confidence. So there you go. If you've got Chiron and Leo, remember the sign shows the how, so it could show up in this way for you if you've got Chiron and Leo in the 11th. But then another possibility, let's go with Chiron in, let's go with Sagittarius. I mean, such matters could be more about adventure and freedom and expanding yourself, right? Spreading your wings, all these things. But still with Chiron there, it just feels like, oh my gosh, what if I do this, if I, branch out, if I try something else, will I be rejected again? So there could be all of these, you know, fears that come up. And possibly as well with Chiron and Sagittarius, there could be bigger collective themes, of course, because Sagittarius is about travel and long distance there. Yes, possibly even being rejected on a more global scale, right? Maybe via social media, the online space with the Sagittarius influence. Similarly, this could show up if Chiron is in Aquarius in the 11th house. But hey, on that note, with Chiron in the 11th house in general, this wound could also show up when it comes to just your political views or your social views, whatever views. There's a real fear of the backlash, or maybe it's that you've literally been in situations where what you went to share or say has not been taken very lightly. Let's just say that. Okay, now with you coming into your 30s and your 50s and beyond, right, with the Virgo Sagittarius stages, you may come to really be quite vocal about your individual views within the collective. And you may even possibly join certain causes or movements or groups. You may find communities and friendships where you do feel a sense of belonging. I think that the big thing here is belonging. Yeah. Being rejected by others, and then your belonging being threatened, and then you being in a very insecure place. But still, as you grow and age, you may become quite the mentor, right? Someone who can assist other people with their own feelings of belonging, and just, yeah, making sure that other people feel included. I think that may be a big important factor for you. Okay, so lastly, Chiron in the 12th house. Now, with Chiron in the 12th house, just want to say here that Chiron is in the 12th house in my chart using the whole sign system. Right. Number one thing I would say with Chiron in the 12th house, just feeling rejected by God, by the divine, by the universe, by the creator, whatever your sort of label is there. But yeah, feeling like you had to look after yourself because you were abandoned by God. And possibly as well having all sorts of complex emotions and questions about spirituality, about reality, about the truth. I mean, I know for myself with Chiron in the 12th, I'm constantly going through this. I'm constantly wondering, is this real, right? Think about, for example, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction, etc. And I'm still sort of like skeptical. I'm a very skeptical person. Even when it comes to astrology, I can be skeptical. But hey, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I actually kind of like that I can show some type of skepticism. I think that's a good thing too. But still, with Chiron in the 12th house, it can be to such a point where it's paralyzing. Okay, it can be to such an extent where you really feel like giving up completely. There's a difficulty here when it comes to feeling supported by God, by God. And as well, even if you are someone and you don't, because not everybody believes in God, you could be an atheist, you've got Chiron in the 12th house, but even on that note, there could just be even challenges when it comes to letting go, when it comes to trusting, having this kind of faith that things are going to work out. These types of things may be challenged for you. I know for myself, this is a lot of what I've been working through over the years, just trying to really learn how to trust, and that if things do not go according to plan, that is okay. We move, right? We move with the tides, we move with the currents. So yes, there is that. But still, another possibility here is that With Chiron in the 12th, maybe you have seen the real serious consequences of drug use or addiction. Yeah, I'm spelling it out just because of demonetization. So yes, perhaps you've seen the real serious consequences when it comes to these areas because of people in your life who have struggled themselves. Maybe you yourself, you've got Chiron in the 12th house, maybe you have struggled yourself and you have worked through your own addictions. I think I can say that. You've worked through your own addictions. I mean, addictions could show up in many different ways. This could even be via shopping or food or PORN, etc. So there is that. Maybe too with Chiron in the 12th house, you isolate yourself a lot. You find it difficult to just function within everyday society. You find it difficult to be within, the everyday stuff. Thinking about even just people's everyday lives, you prefer to separate or distance yourself a bit. Maybe you find it all very overwhelming. you know, the everyday mundane stuff, certain parts of it can be overwhelming. And so maybe for you, it's important for you to take a step back, or maybe it's important for you to rest. But then again, there could also be the other side of this where you fear that if you do rest or that if you do take time out, that you're missing out on something. So there's that as a possibility. You could even struggle within yourself about, oh, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not living up to my own sort of expectations, where you could have these really high expectations of yourself actually. And it's almost as if you think that you're invincible, or that you think that you can do anything, right? But these matters may not be very realistic. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. Not very realistic. Plus, there could be all sorts of issues here when it comes to establishing healthy boundaries between you and others. Sort of dissolving your own identity to suit or fit in with others, or to merge with others. So do be mindful of this stuff. I know Chiron in the 12th house for myself, and Leo there, I can see parts of this, okay? The information here within myself. And again, it's something that I'm working on. I'm a work in progress, aren't we all? Now, let's think about the sign. So the sign is going to show the how. So let's say that Chiron is in, let's go with Taurus. Yeah. So Chiron is in Taurus in the 12th house. Maybe a lot of this stuff to do with dissolving your own identity. It relates to that of your own inner security, your self-worth. Maybe the addiction stuff is somehow tied to your own comforts or food, things like that, sweet things. Or let's say that Chiron is in, let's go for Scorpio again. So Chiron could be in Scorpio in the 12th house. Perhaps there's a lot of real irrational fears that you have there. And maybe sleep is a big issue because you get night terrors, and you have these real crazy nightmares, etc. Maybe even a part of this, isolation stuff is somehow tied to loss and grief. But then there's also the inner exploration there, seeking help from professionals. This is the thing too with the 12th house. Keep in mind, the 12th house can rule our sleep. So there could be challenges here when it comes to sleeping. The 12th house rules our dreams. So there could be all sorts of crazy just dreams that you have that leave you just feeling like, oh my gosh, how did I just dream that? I mean, I've certainly felt that or experienced those moments. But then also Chiron, or rather, should I say, the 12th house rules hospitals and imprisonment, these things. So maybe there's a real fear right? A real like terror when it comes to hospitals, like visiting hospitals, being in them. Maybe you've, experienced certain scares where you've been taken to hospital and all these things. Just, yeah. So I wanted to say that. So as I was saying there, just remember the sign. The sign is going to show the high. Now, coming into your 30s and of course your 50s and beyond, this is where we're going to notice, if you've got Chiron in the 12th house, how you can possibly come to this place of letting go. There's something here about surrendering to the divine. There's something here about surrendering to the things that you cannot control. It's a big lesson. It's a big lesson, but I do think that with time, of course, this is a process. With time, you can come to learn how to surrender, how to let go, how to trust. And then with that as well, you can help mentor and guide other people throughout their own spiritual journeys. All right, so this has been Chiron through the houses, everyone. Thank you all so, so much for watching today. Now, again, I want to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. And if you would like to join the Patreon, you can do so by going to the link below. And with that, thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And if you really did enjoy today's presentation, you can always buy me a coffee. But of course, there is no pressure whatsoever, just to let you know what I offer. Thank you, everyone. Please, again, make sure to comment, like, subscribe. Let me know where Chiron is in your chart. And with that, I will talk to you all in the next video. Bye.